Hey man, thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. I know
Hello,
that we're all stuck,
thank you for
so
having
we
me.
might as well be stuck together, right?
Yeah, yeah. I'm kind of lost thought of what's out there by now.
Yeah. Are you guys on full lockdown, like stay at home?
Yeah, and I stayed at home a bit before that was like the case as well. So I think it's either been 4 or 5 weeks now.
Wow.
So it's been a while. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been outside, but like I haven't been to anything. It's just like I'll go for like a short walk or that's it.
Yeah, it's tough. I know like especially you can't get film processed, you can't.
Yeah, I actually picked up a camera for the first time yesterday. In that like whole period of time. It felt kind of cool. I mean, I took photos which I'll never probably care about, but it was just like fun to do something.
Yeah, you have to stay like the one thing about being locked down here is like I've found that I will mess with try different things. I had a Ricoh GR attached to like an arm with a flash on the bottom the other day, experimenting with
Okay,
like what a flash would look like shooting straight up from really low, with a wide
okay,
angle lens. And
yeah,
you do what you got to do to survive, in
yeah.
times like these.
I wish I had some more of my stuff with me. I've managed to isolate without most of my cameras, which is a
Oh,
shame.
oh, that's
So
terrible.
I can't be playing with many experiments for the meantime, but I think I'm going to go and get them soon.
Nice. Well, uh, at least this will distract you for a little while.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm doing fine in the grand scheme. I've just like lost track of days and time and whatnot. But I'm finally watching TV and other things rather than just kind of sitting there and watching YouTube. So I feel like I'm getting culturally enlightened.
What are you watching?
I've been watching Better Call Saul, which my friend nearly forced me to watch. It took some persuasion, but it's paying off now.
And have you seen all the Breaking Bad?
I have, and I'd seen like the first like half the season when it came out, um, and I just gave up on it. But I've gone back through my newfound time. I've gone back through, and it's actually really good.
Yeah, I think I got about 3 episodes in, and I gave up on Better Call Saul. So,
Wow, let me tell you, I'm now. I think I restarted the journey last week, and I'm now on season 4, like episode 8. So it's good.
see, I love that guy. What's the actor's name?
Bob, what's
Odenkirk.
Odenkirk? Yeah,
Bob Odenkirk. Yeah, he's fantastic. I love
it's
that
just a
guy.
great name.
I know, right? How do you not get work with a name like that?
Yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. Has nothing to do with talent. It's just a good
No,
stage name.
yeah,
All right, so I figured, you know, I've tried a couple of these so far with varying degrees of success. Uh,
okay,
you know, I thought I'd go big. Like, let's just do Alec as the first one. Why not? Just go big or go home, right?
yeah,
Uh, and so I think with his, it went well to have some to prime the pump for questions. So
okay,
to start out with three inconsequential questions to
okay.
get, you've been sitting inside, you got to get your brain activated
Yep.
and whatnot.
I was thinking just before this started, I was thinking I feel particularly like asleep right now, so I'm ready for this brain exercise.
All right, brain exercise number one. What is your guilty pleasure movie? The one that you would rather not tell your cool friends that you like.
Uh, See, the problem is like I don't watch films like
What?
really ever. I know it's really weird, but I've always had, I guess, a short attention span. I guess I would blame it on, but I normally prefer ending up playing like video games or watching short form content.
Hmm?
But I feel like I have one answer. I think I always used to enjoy 500 Days of Summer. It's a
Okay.
nice little,
Yeah. It's
maybe
like
not the
partially
most
guilty.
macho film to watch, but yeah, I don't even know the last film I watched, which is
Wow.
like now that I've got into watching Better Call Saul, I'm like, well, when I finish this, probably in a few days, I will actually try and make my way through a list of films because watching this, I have been like, there is a lot you can take away if you're working in visual arts to watching this kind of stuff, and it's something which I've neglected for a long time.
Yeah, I sometimes if I get like really in a like I feel really stuck visually, I'll just like find some sort of a Terrence Malick movie because Emmanuel Lubezki, Chivo, is like his director of photography, and he like uses really wide lenses. I don't know, just has a very specific like aesthetic that even if you didn't like pay attention to anything in the movies, which I sometimes
Yeah,
don't, it's just like visually just so I don't know. I love his the way he sees light, like very
yeah,
natural. Uh, but yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like anytime I'm in a conversation with a lot of people and they're like, "Well, I've seen this film lately," I'm like, "No,
yeah,
this is not going well. I don't really want to be in this conversation."
yeah.
I was
Well,
like,
that's the
"Yeah,
problem.
but
I
have
have
you
a lot of
seen that dumb
friends that,
YouTube meme?"
yeah, yeah, it's me. But like I've got lots of friends that work in video or film, so like I'm subject to that kind of conversation very frequently,
Yeah.
and I just don't speak. I didn't just present, but I will try and do it more because I always like enjoy it once I break the barrier. It's basically I always know that if I'm gonna watch a movie, I need to like fully commit to that thing. Whereas normally I'm very like, oh well, I'll just check Instagram or check this thing, like, and I'll be just doing stuff. And if you're watching a 10-minute video, you can do stuff kind of whilst you're doing that, or you can do stuff in 10 minutes. But when you're committing to 2 hours of like to fully enjoy this thing, you've actually got to give it everything for 2 hours. I think that's why I struggle. But since I've got unlimited time to give to nothing, yeah, I feel like it's coming.
All right, so you ready for brain stretcher number two?
I am.
All right, worst job you've ever had.
Oh, well, I,
No
I've
adventure
also
on the
got a
record.
rubbish answer for this. I've never really had a real job. Um,
I
so
guess
like
that's yeah. You're
yeah,
like
I've
what,
never had to
25?
do retail. Yeah, I'm 24. I've never worked like a very normal job. Like the first work I ever did was assisting like a wedding photographer when I was 14, and I just worked with
14?
him. Yeah,
Whoa.
in the UK you have to do like work experience when you get to year 9 in school, which I think is 14. And you do like 2 weeks at some sort of workplace. And I was going between a bakery and a photography studio, and I ended up at a photography studio. And he really liked me, and like up to that point, I knew quite a lot about Photoshop and stuff just from my spare time habits. And he kept me on like whenever I was out of school to just go and work with him. So I didn't need to get like a normal job. And I just kept doing that. And then when it came to doing something else, I managed to somehow make whatever I'm doing now work in succession. So I've been quite lucky that I haven't really. I mean, like I've taken photo jobs which I don't enjoy, but it's not the same as like working somewhere where you really hate it.
Wow. Hey, that's great. Uh, that actually transitions right into. I'll skip the question number three. I'll save that for a dry moment
Okay,
of conversation. Because I
okay.
mean, that's a perfect. So at 14 years old, you're assisting. Where did that love for photography? Did that come in before then? Is that how you ended up wanting to assist? I mean, where did that love
Yeah.
for photography start?
Um, I don't really know like what the very initial part was. I think actually the first bit was having Photoshop on the computer at home. For some reason, my dad had it installed in like the family computer, and I remember just like going on it and digitally drawing or manipulating photos as like fun. Like a kid might draw on a piece of paper. I was just like on Photoshop having fun. And I think I don't know why I had some money. I think it might have been some inheritance or something when I was like 10 or 11. And I bought like a digital compact camera, like a classic point and shoot type thing that, I mean, I found recently it's really quite bad, but at the time, I'm sure it was decent. And I just started taking like photos of me and my friends going out after school, hanging out. Um, so I guess I always had like some sort of drive to want to take photos of things. But I don't think I necessarily like wanted to be a photographer at that point. And I guess like from a bit further on than that, I bought a DSLR and started to take a bit more interest. And I used to make loads of I think I cared more about video making, and like I used to watch loads of tutorials on like special effects and stuff, and I'd make stupid videos with my friends doing fighting or something. I'd just go on a website and look at every tutorial and pretty much just make each one just to like learn how to do it. So I always kind of like flip between wanting to make videos or photos from pretty young because of just buying those cameras and finding it fun. I think it also ties into like I'd go out occasionally, go skateboard, or later I was into free running, and like those kind of action sports always have like quite a big community for the people who are into cameras to document the activity. So like I made videos and photos of doing those sports with my friends as well. And I guess it just like evolved from there.
Are your parents creative people? Like, do you come from a creative stock?
Uh, my mum's a dressmaker, so I guess that is creative, but it's not like in the similar sense. But I my dad, I would say, isn't very creative.
I mean,
If he's
I don't
watching,
either.
I'm
Neither of
sorry.
my parents are. No, neither of my parents are creative at all. My mom would always have. I don't know if you remember those little 110. I don't know if you ever even found that they're like a little brick
Yeah,
almost. She always had a little 110 like that, and she would take pictures of us and always cut our heads off. Like, I wish I could find all
okay,
these pictures because I'm sure they're really fascinating. All of us with no
yeah,
heads. But yeah, none of my family are visually creative either. It was just kind of a blind fluke,
yeah.
getting
I don't
into it.
think it was inspired by what was around me. It was just I don't. Maybe it was because I was so bad at like my handwriting is really bad, and I'm really bad at drawing. And I always hated writing when I was younger because like I wasn't very good at just writing super legibly. Like it's fine, but it's really ugly. And I guess I it was like the only way I was able to like express myself was to play on Photoshop or something where I could undo all the time or use the computer to make it look a bit more perfect. So I think that's why I enjoyed it earlier on.
So that kind of gets you through high school. And am I right that you didn't go to university or art school or anything?
Um, I did very briefly. I so when when you're 17 or 16 turning 17, you go to college here. So that's 2 years. Um, and you'd normally do like four subjects of like academic kind of subjects. And that's normally when someone might study for photography for the first time. And I decided then that because I'd been working with that guy for like, I guess, 2.5 years, it wasn't necessarily worth it for me to go and study photography because I felt like I'd learned so much like out there doing it with him that I decided to do a BTEC, which is a much easier qualification, I might add, where there was no writing. Well, there was writing, but there was no like tests, and it was like a fully creative course on video making. So I did that for like 2 years straight, and it was just like making all different kinds of videos. And when it came to finishing that, I thought I wanted to go to university, or like I flipped between for a lot. But I decided to go in the end to study essentially the same course. It was like film production at university. And I think I only lasted like 2 or 3 weeks and I dropped out. So it was like the first lecture I went to. We had, or I don't know if it was a lecture or a tutorial, but there was like an introduction where they went through this is what a wide shot is. This is what a, a long shot is. This is what a close up is. And I was just like, "Oh, I'm so done with this. What am I learning from this?" So I decided I spoke to a lot of people and they said you just have to get through the first year and then it gets a bit more interesting. But I thought I'd rather go out there and start making some things instead.
Yeah, and being a university professor, I fully get that. There's nothing worse than walking
Yeah,
into a room and seeing people that look so bored because they know exactly what you're saying, and then right across from them is some person that has no idea what exposure is. They've never seen a
yeah,
camera.
right.
That it's such a hard thing because like, you can't, I don't know,
Yeah,
like you can't
that was the
serve
problem for
everybody.
me because I was lucky to have worked like the guy who I assisted. I eventually ended up doing video work for him as well, where it was like I wasn't assisting, I was just shooting video. Um, so I was like, I knew quite a lot about the thing I was studying. And then there was a woman on our course who was, I think, around 40, who had decided she wanted a new try at a different career and thought she'd go to university and study film and knew nothing about it. So they've got to go through and teach for her and other people who haven't worked because it would be completely unfair to just presume they know all this stuff. But that just made it feel like it maybe wasn't the right thing for me to do. But I thought I'd probably progress faster if I just like I learned so much on the job as
Yeah,
opposed to even in the college course I did. So I
yeah,
thought I'd just
me
try and
too,
do
man.
more of that.
Totally. I would rather even like just learn sitting and reading a book about something. It's like I would rather be doing it. That's the only way to learn is just to like get out there and do it. So how does were your parents
Yeah.
upset when you were just like, nah, I'm good?
I don't think they were too surprised. Um, I think there was enough of me being unsure whether to go or not in the first place that they weren't too surprised. I was
So
lucky. I got a job like straight away working in video. So like it wasn't like I dropped out and became a failure for a long time. It was like it all went very well, luckily.
so that where does negative feedback, where does
Mm,
this hit that world?
I think that was like a year after I dropped out. So I dropped out and I worked for this company that was interviewing sports personalities. Well, the company wasn't that, but that was my job. So the company was like aiming to be a new social media network. And my job was to go around and interview sports personalities on video. So like I'd travel around the country and ask them questions, which normally had been pre-prepared for me because I didn't really care about any of the sports. But it was like kind of interesting work, and it was the first time I'd ever been paid like properly consistently because I'd normally only work like in the holidays, not every day. Um, and when I was doing that, that's when I started buying more film cameras. I think like because I'd never had money before, the first few months I ended up buying like my first nice film cameras in very rapid succession. I think I managed there was a really weird coincidence where I managed to buy my first Leica and a Contax T2 on the same day. Or that I didn't buy them on the same day. I bought the Contax first, which I was really excited for. I got this really good deal. I bought like the full gold Contax T2 and I bought it for like 200 and I think it might have been £195.
Man.
It was in perfect condition. And it was the guy's first time he'd ever sold on eBay. And I sold it to him. Well, I bought it from him, and he just didn't reply for 2 weeks straight. So I was like fighting a case on eBay saying, please, can I have my money back? This guy's obviously trying to scam me, blah, blah, blah. And during that time of trying to get my money back, I decided that I deserve the Leica M6 I'd always wanted instead. So I ended up buying that, um, presuming that the contacts would be refunded and never come. And then the day where the Leica arrived, two parcels arrived at the same time, and one of them was the contents.
Well, now you
Um,
have a backup.
and I decided they were, well, yeah, they were both too nice. I couldn't not try them both. It would be rude. Um, so I was lucky that I didn't have many consequences to spending all my money at that point. But another weird coincidence on that day was that the guy that sold me the lens for that Leica somehow shipped me a Holger adapter instead of like instead of a Zeiss lens. He never got either back apparently, so he took the blame. But I can't imagine shipping a £500 lens to like the person that bought a £5 piece of plastic for a Hulk.
Oh,
That must have sucked.
oh,
Um, but yeah, anyway, moving on from that, I started making the videos probably a year after I dropped out. And before I made the videos, I made like a blog because I came up with the idea of the name just randomly, I think. I think all good names I've ever come up with, or self-proclaimed good names I've come up with, I've been like just on the cusp of doing something. And two of the names have been getting into a car, like not thinking about something, just like getting into the car.
yeah.
And then suddenly I'm like, oh, that's a really good idea. And it was one of them. And I thought of this phrase and I was really into film photography at the time. And I was like, that'd be really cool for something, but I don't know what that thing is yet. And I searched instantly to see if the web domain was free. And it was. And I was like, oh, I've got to make something with it. I'll buy it and just think of what I'm going to do later. And my first idea, it was when Medium had first come out by Twitter.
Hmm.
And my idea was just to use Medium to write blog posts about every different type of film because I'd never like used a film camera at college or anything like that. I didn't necessarily have like any pre-existing knowledge of how anything worked or what anything looked like. So I was kind of just going through and buying each item I could find in a shop and just being like, oh, well, this is what Fuji Superior looks like, and this is what gold looks like, and just going one by one. And I thought there was no like at the time, I guess this is like 4 years ago now, or maybe when I was doing this, it was like 4.5 years ago. There was like no good digestible information on the internet about film photography. It was all like very not cool and very old forum of landscape photographers, etc. And I was just like browsing Flickr all the time to try and find out what different cameras kind of results looked like. And it just didn't feel like the best way to do it. So I thought I was going to make these blog posts where I just shoot every single type of film and just upload the photos and be like, look, this is what it looks like when you shoot this. Like it's just like helpful for someone young to be like, hey, here are the colors you get out of this versus this. And I got bored after I think the third review. I made 3 articles and I was just like, it's not very fun and no one's really paying attention to this. And then it kind of clicked. I was like, well, I know how to make videos. Like that's how I was earning most of my money up until that point. Wasn't getting booked for photography much, but I was getting video work. And I was like, well, why don't I just make videos? That makes so much sense. And then it just happened, I guess.
Yeah, I remember discovering when I discovered negative feedback, because I live in in Tennessee, like kind of remote area, and I didn't have any formal training in photography until I went to grad school. And so I was always like accumulating, like I would have all these channels that I followed or any kind of data, all research
Yeah,
based, just because it's like when you live in a place where there's no museums or anything, you do what you can. And so I'm always picking up on that. And when I stumbled into negative feedback, I was like, wow, these are really, really well produced. Like they have a vision and like like using multiple formats and having these little cut ins. And, I was like, these guys got a cool thing going on here. And so that's when I started kind of following what you guys were doing. And, it was unique. It wasn't like, it didn't feel like I want to be an influencer, so I'm going to do all this. It wasn't like my goal is to be an influencer. It seemed it came from a very genuine
yeah,
affection for for the craft.
yeah. I think when I first like pitched the idea um, to someone who's a good friend now, but I guess at the time he wasn't necessarily a friend yet. It was like I was just getting to know him, and he was a lot more successful, established photographer at the time. And I think my pitch to him was that I wanted it just to feel like you were out hanging out with your friends, taking some photos. Like I never wanted it to be like a lesson or a lecture, because like everything that was on YouTube at the time was very like, to me at least, it felt like a much older person sitting down, kind of teaching me something. as opposed to just feeling like having fun. So I just wanted to make it like a light-hearted like day out. People like going on photo walks with other people. Why not make it like feel like you're doing that? I think that's probably why it did well at first. Because like at first there were loads of people who would comment just saying, I I don't even like photography. I don't take photos, but that's somewhat for some reason I enjoy this, which I always found pretty weird.
Well, that like that's something that I wanted to kind of hash out and like kind of pick your brain about because in a lot of ways, like especially like going through grad school, I went through grad school later on, like I was 30 when I went to grad school, and I'd worked professionally before then. And the conversation always came up, especially with my buddy Matt Eich, that like we all come from like photojournalism where we want to share our work with the masses to a certain degree. It's not really about being in the art world and being in this very small, tiny, itty bitty place, but we all love photo books. Like the photo book for me is like the crowning jewel of a project for me, for my practice. And when I see like what and I'm like 10 years older than you, uh when I see like what you're doing and some of you guys are doing, it's like, man, the thought of it clicked. I submitted some photos when you guys had like an all call on your Instagram of a body of work that I had shot. And I remember scrolling through there and there was like 3,000 likes or something. And I was like, when do 3,000 people see my work, And I
Yeah.
was like, there's a shift happening here. And I wonder, I mean, how do you think about that? I mean, I love the idea that people that aren't photographers are watching stuff that you're putting out there. I mean, that's to me is really encouraging that we're not just making stuff for other photographers to consume. It's kind of this
Yeah.
cycle. Like, how do you feel like negative feedback is impacting kind of a broader audience?
Mm. I
Or
mean,
do
I
you?
don't know. Yeah, I don't. I feel like less so it's people who are um, not photographers now, but it's definitely like a much wider spectrum of people who enjoy photography than you might find at like a book launch. If you go to a book launch or a gallery opening in London, it's always the same people. Like it's that group of people every single time. And I think you could also tell like whenever I've done like a call for submissions, the variety of work and like it it's not really one kind of person that's paying attention to this. There's so many different people at different levels of different interests, completely different backgrounds, and it's really interesting for all of them to be able to come to one place. But yeah, I think it's a weird audience to have. It's very cool, but it's like yeah, I don't know where I'm going. Bring me back on track.
Sorry, I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while. It's one of the reasons I wanted to chat with you. I want to talk about your work,
No,
definitely.
I
I wanted to take a little time to kind of, because like I think about this stuff all the time. It's like, I, I want to, I want my work to be in galleries. Yeah. Like I want to, whatever, like I want to have whatever that accomplishment is. But in my mind, there's a limitation there, right? Because it's the same cats that go to
yeah
all that stuff that frequent those spaces. I've got this little like guerrilla gallery downtown that's just like stuff posted in these like vacant shop windows. So like you don't even go in. There's nobody. It's not. It's like an outdoor gallery almost,
hmm
and it's like by a soup kitchen. So it's like the audience there is totally different than somebody that's gonna walk up in a gallery. And that kind of conversation, I think, is interesting to
yeah
have.
for
Like,
sure
I think what you guys are doing is there's something there, to where like people that would never see contemporary fine art photography, you know, somebody that's never seen a large format camera, they're getting
yeah
somebody that's never seen a photo book before, right? I mean, like, I think that's interesting. I mean, I think that's kind of a
yeah
special. I don't know if you ever meant that to happen, but
no
that's
I,
kind of a special
no,
place
it's
to be
been
in
a
the
plan.
world.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely happened by chance, but I realized what was happening early on, I think. And like it always became a challenge of, there's like lots of layers to the challenge, I guess, that firstly I had to like pump out videos consistently. And that led to like posting a lot of photos which maybe I wouldn't want to represent me as a photographer, which is like one thing which I think a lot of people would be scared of. Um, And then it's like gaining this audience of people who are a very different audience to the people that I want to look at my photos. So like I wanted at one point to then start getting the work into the more kind of art world of people. And I think there was a point around then when I decided like the biggest challenge for me was to try and build this bridge between my young audience and the gallery world, because I need these young people to start buying photo books and go to the galleries. Otherwise, all these parts of photography, which I really like, just aren't going to exist by the time I'm old enough to have my work in there. Like, I need to keep the whole ecosystem going, otherwise, it won't exist. So, I think I realized at one point that, yeah, I've got this group of people who watch what I'm doing now, and let's try and bring them into like the part I like as much as possible. But I think as more time went on, I realized that it's everything can change. Like I don't need to worry about like editioning of prints how a gallery might do it now. I was very worried for a while, like trying to follow all these old school art rules, but at the same time being this online person. And I think really the best thing to do is to keep trying to push my own path of like where I think it should be or how I think it should be interacted with, and not worry about working through like a traditional publisher or working through necessarily a gallery. Like I think of it like how big unsigned musician is now. Like it's become like the way to go to not go through a record deal. I think the power is in the photographer's hand now, that really making these videos is giving me an audience to create the work I want to spread. And it's just like a different way of sharing stuff.
And I would say it's equally as valid. I mean, like, granted, I want to have validation from a publisher or from a gallery. Like, I think uh, I'm not confident enough in myself to, to be okay with my own, like whatever.
Yeah,
Um, but it's not the only way. And I think that like most people don't realize how much of that structure is just capitalism. It's
yeah,
just, it's just selling stuff. And I don't think people want to realize that, but it's like that. So that means that that's not the only way to do it. And
yeah,
anyway, yeah, dude, I love that. I love that. Like, make a new way, or make your own way. Like, the rules
yeah.
are
I
there.
think
Are
you go.
Sorry, go ahead. You had to think. I want to hear your think.
Okay. Well, no, I mean, what was the think? I think I was gonna say that um, I've like been going at it my own way all up like up until this point. To Why would I try and like do it my own way to then just merge into this current like old school art way? It makes so much more sense to like try and rethink how it's done, because I can't imagine for 1 second that by the time that everyone my age is like 50 to 60, do you think they're going to be spending like 30 grand on a photographer's print that's in a gallery? Like, I don't think photos are going to hold the same value to my generation, because it's been so much more common. And since like 5 years ago, every Instagram photographer ever has been selling prints for like a £5 to £10 price. So why is someone going to want to spend thousands? Like I just don't see the longevity in that. So someone's going to have to think in a new way soon.
Yeah, I mean, technology has changed. I mean, when you can like, I have my stuff done. They're all digital C prints, but I mean, nobody's doing them by hand. I could make 1,000 of them if I wanted to. Just order
Yeah,
Pam. Once you have a lab that you love working with. Yeah. I mean, I'm. You're not wrong, man. You're not wrong.
yeah. Well, I mean, there will still be people. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like everyone can afford thousands on a print now anyway. But I do think it's going to diminish even faster.
So one thing I did wonder about, and this is just I think like for every photographer, because I want to transition out of talking about negative feedback because I know that's like kind of what you're known for, but you have your own practice, you have your own work that you're doing. You've done a lot to be 24 years old, you know, I mean, at least in my mind. Um,
Yep.
so how does negative feedback though, how does that impact like the time you have for your own work?
Um, I'd say like up until this year, it's been like the perfect kind of like co-pilot kind of experience where it's given me absolutely every resource I could ever kind of want to make personal work, especially when, well, like from the aspect of like being able to buy cameras and work very closely with a lab, like all of that stuff has become so much easier because of what I do.
And by
And
then film.
yeah, um, but also like I can make a video of going to shoot some personal work. Like as long as I'm not worried about, because this was like the first big like personal project I did. I tried not to show anyone what I was making until it was ready, and because that's like everything I was told to do by my friends in photography who I respected, and I did that and kind of like funded it all off my own thing. Didn't show anyone, and then came out with it. I had an exhibition. It was great, but I thought it could be better just through. I think that the best way to utilize what I have is to bring people like along the journey, makes them care more about what you're doing. So for the second piece of work I did, I made a few videos where it'd be like, well, I can pay for this short road trip I want to do if I just make a video of taking the photos that I'm going to take on this road trip and not worry about trying to hide them away for a year. I'll just post them now and not care. Like, who cares if I post this? I'm not going to go through a traditional publisher anyway. They're not going to care if the audience has already seen the photos. And in my theory, there's no proof to it yet, but I'm near certain that anyone that has played somewhat of a role in watching you take those photos, they felt like they've had an impact or played a part on that journey, that they will be so much more likely to purchase the book or come and see an exhibition, or just like they feel attached to the work as well because they've seen you go through it, as opposed to me who normally shares photos all the time, to come out of the out of the blue and just be like, well, here's 30 photos I've made that you don't care about. Please still pay attention to it.
So are you speaking specifically about Lonely Cloud? Is that the
So Lonely Cloud is the second one where
Mhm.
I'm trying to be more present whilst making it, but it hasn't always been the case. But I guess initially what you were asking was like how it is making those kind of photos, and that's where like yeah, I make money through making the videos. That's my job. So I can use some of the money as budget to go and do these personal shoots and then use that as the content which would go in a video. So it's very helpful in the fact that like I guess most photographers do commissions and then have to spend their own money on
teach?
doing teach to then go and do the personal work is like fully personal. And I'm quite lucky that I've been able to like make that personal work whilst making the other work. Like it's I can make it the videos if I wanted to. Um,
And do you usually
I
have like you have somebody shooting video? Do you have like an audio guy? Do you have like
um
what does the crew look like? I mean, I'm just thinking when I think about going and making work, like the thought of having two or three people like watching while making it
yeah,
is such a
it
different experience.
it definitely depends. Like at the beginning of shooting Lonely Cloud, I wanted to make a full-on documentary. Like I wanted to make like a really good video about like the whole thing. Um, and I think we went on two. Well, no, we only did two shoots. We went on like one small road trip and to one location which I shot with like a cinema camera, like a proper like nice setup. And I think I just well, I think I ran out of money probably, but
I mean, if you're shooting a cinema camera, then yeah.
yeah, but it was like also paying for like if I want to go and drive to Cornwall and take this photo, it costs a lot more if I want to take two extra people with me. Like it just, I was never going to make the work if I had to pay for those extra bits. So I have ended up, for anything I filmed along the way was probably just me holding a camera, putting it on a tripod, or just filming on my phone. Or a lot of the time I would go away with a friend because it's more fun if you're with someone, and they'll hold the camera as a favor if I need them to. It's never been like for this work at least, like in the recent times, it hasn't been like a real production behind the scenes. It's kind of been pretty low budget DIY.
So let's chat some. I want to hear about Lonely Cloud and especially just like I read up a little bit on just identity and you know being being from somewhere. Like, what has this project meant for you? As for being proud of where you're from.
Um, I guess the easiest way to start is just like talk about how it came to fruition, um, which was actually through um, always loving American photography. So I always thought that the next big piece of work I wanted to do would be my Great American Road Trip-esque series of photos. Just because, is my connection okay?
Yeah, you're dropping a little bit, but you're good. I hear you.
Okay. Just because like all of the photos I liked were people doing the Great American Road Trip. That one came through so delayed for me.
I still got you. You're good on
Can
my
you
end.
hear me?
Yeah, I see you. Do you see me?
Okay, I think it's coming back.
Okay.
Okay,
That's part of
yeah,
that's part
I
of the
think it's
fun.
working now.
It's part of the fun.
So Great American Road Trip was everything I thought I wanted to photograph. And basically I did it and realized I had like there was nothing to it. It was just photos that looked like photos that I like. Um, like there's just like there's never going to be something that means anything when me as a foreigner comes to America to take photos inspired by all these old photographers. So that led me to like a big like kind of thinking about what I want to take photos of because that was everything I thought I wanted to make work about. Um, and I realized that like there was no work which resembled road trip photography that's happened in the UK or that I knew of. Like no, everyone I knew and respected took their photos when they're on holiday. Like they'd go away from the UK to shoot. They wouldn't make like something about the place. And then when you think of British photography, I think most people would just think of Martin Parr, which is fine, but it's just like that's not what I want to be associated with. So I realized that I wanted to start trying and taking some of the conventions of road trip photography and try and make them in the UK. And it grew into more and more as it started to happen. And I also realized that like photos had already been taken, fitted into this theme already. Like it tied into the previous work I made. It was just broader. And then like loads of more things happen, like Brexit's happening, all these kind of things. It just like it's for a while I thought there was like no timeliness to the work. And then that happened. And it's like, well, actually, maybe there is actually a bit going on now. But it's, I guess it's all about one of the other things that was important to me when I started taking the photos was flags. Because when I think of like the American photography, I think of I just like an American flag in like a suburban house looks to me so picturesque. Like it looks so like cool for some reason. I don't know if it does to someone who's actually American, but to me, it's like really cinematic. It's really cool, and it feels like it's okay to be patriotic in America. Like it's so ingrained in culture. Whereas here, it's like you see. an English flag and you instantly think they're probably racist. And like it just like it doesn't have a good connotation. And so I was interested in that at first, and like that a lot of the first photos that I took were just trying to find flags, and then it just kind of like kept rolling from there.
No, man, I totally get that. That's the same. Actually, whenever I see certain like patriotism in America has that same association now because of current leadership. That if you're a patriot, that probably
Yeah,
means that certain things. And I find the conversations a lot more interesting. It's like, well, why do you get to choose what patriotism is? You know, like, why does that group of people get to say that this is what patriotism is when I think that it's caring about my people in my country, you know, no matter who they are.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so where are you on the project? Are you, I mean, it's done
Mm.
as, I mean, obviously you can't
No,
shoot right now,
it's
but
it's not done. It's not done at all. Um, I think up until so I think I've had like a really big shift in like my whole ideas of photography since the summer. Um, so I had this exhibition of the work in the summer, which I knew at the time wasn't like the finished work, but it was like, well, I don't want to show anything older because this is by far like the best thing I've got. I might as well show it at its state that it is now. And I remember the guy that ran the gallery speaking to me about like I don't know what he called it, but something along the lines of like post-exhibition blues. Um, and I just like I dumped so much time in trying to make the prints like perfect and just like everything absolutely right for the exhibition that by the time it kind of finished, I just didn't want anything to do with making personal work. Um, and I realized that I've been in a very fortunate position where I haven't really had to take any photos for anyone else for like 2.5 years because I was just taking photos for YouTube and for the paid jobs. So like I'm not doing any like normal photography. I'm just making photos for me, which probably a lot of people don't like. So I had this like change of heart where I thought I'd just take some portraits for a while. Like I bought a studio camera instead, got a studio, and was like, well, it's actually really refreshing to make normal photos. And I didn't take a photo anything to do with Lonely Cloud for a long time. And I kind of didn't want anything to do with it for a while until like the day Brexit happened and I kind of kicked back into gear. And as soon as I pulled like I hadn't touched my 8x10 in I think 6 months. And like the moment I pulled it out of the bag, I was like, okay, it's happening again. I'm gonna keep working on this. Like, you can't look through that ground glass and not want to take photos. But I think up until that point of the exhibition, I'd always been really impatient. I've always wanted to like, I just want to make the book. I just want to take the photos and release it. I have never had like the patience to be like, well, in 7 years it's going to be a really good series, so I might as well just wait until then. And I've always had these like really great photographers talk to me and say like, well, if I take 5 photos a year that are good, I'm really happy. That's a great haul. And I'm like, well, that's cool for you to say now, but I need to make something soon. Like, what am I going to do for the rest of the year if I can only take 5 photos? So I'd always been too impatient. I think it took up until that point of having this first big exhibition and like a big moment of reflection where I was like, you know what? It really doesn't need to come out anytime soon. I'd rather it just be good. And now I've gone back to it a lot more. I've got rid of quite a lot of photos. I got rid of nearly all the portraits. And I think I'm going to get rid of all of them again. But like, I just want to, I know that I'm better than a lot of those photos at making photos, hopefully. Like, I think I've gained a lot more skill since I took a lot of them. Like some of the photos from 2017, that's a while now that I
that's
would
a while
like
to you.
to, it's a while to me, that I'd like to go forward and make some make some improvements because I think even at the least, because of these like since summer to now, where I focused on taking portraits, I think about it differently to how I did at the beginning of that time. That also my when I started making the work, I was also interested in just photographing like interesting people, and then it got to a certain point where I was like, the only photos I like in this are actually of young people. And I think it's like people who I actually see a bit of myself in is why I'm interested in photographing them. And I got rid of all of the photos of people who are like significantly older than me. And I just like, I don't have enough new ones to put in. So at the least, I want to go through and make it have like a good balance of that. But
Just keep the one of the guy in the jacket from your hometown that he's kind of turning his head a little bit. He
yeah,
has brown hair. I
he's
love that
allowed
for you.
in. Thank you.
Keep that one. That's a good one.
Yeah,
He's
yeah, I think it's fine. I just like I want to make something even better.
hey, that's
I think
always
that's the
okay.
problem.
Yeah. That like that's the if at any point you're like, oh
You just,
yeah, this is
you
good,
just like
you should be
zoomed
worried.
loads of words at once because I lost connection.
Oh. They still have you? Are you still here? You're spinning. It says, I can't see you. Hey.
Back on Wi-Fi now.
Okay. The swap over. I was
Yeah,
just saying that like if at any point I always feel like if at any point I'm like, yeah, this is good, I'm good, then my career's over, you know? Like if you don't have
yeah,
a healthy
yeah. It's true.
skepticism of your work, like you're not gonna be growing and I don't know, like there has to be a
Yeah,
balance of being
I mean there
okay
would.
with where something was when you
Yeah,
made it to a certain degree, but it never being good enough.
yeah. I mean, there's definitely been moments where like seeing when I exhibited, I printed a lot of stuff stupidly big. Like it was a big show. It was like 30 photos, and like some of them were 6 foot wide. They were big prints, and like there was some moments there where I was like, you know what, these are pretty cool photos. But it's like, yeah, some of them don't exist the way I want them to exist. But I
Hey, you
think
know
in the
what they
future
say
it will
though?
be.
If your pictures aren't good enough, you just print them big. That's the
Yeah,
trick.
yeah,
That always fixes
it
it.
does. I can testify now that it does. No,
um,
I think
but
that show was actually interesting for similar reasons you said about your next door soup kitchen show. Is that like this was in pretty rural Ireland in a place which actually has really rich history of art, but maybe not loads of practicing artists. So there's a great tradition kind of ingrained into this town to always go to the exhibitions, but they might not necessarily think about art in the same way that normal people that go to exhibitions. I say normal people, people that go to art
the people, yeah.
exhibitions. Um, so hearing like the response from people who are like people who you'd never see in a gallery in London was so interesting, and like that was worth so much more to me than hearing what someone who thinks they know loads about photography had to say about a certain composition or something.
I remember in grad school, we were in the basement of this like old Catholic church, me and a few other dudes, and we had our photos spread out across all these tables because we were sequencing to get ready to like do a book edit. And the janitor came downstairs and he was like walking around, he was looking at everything, and we were like, what's he gonna say? And then my buddy was like, hey, what do you think this dude's work's about? And he was looking at my photos and he nailed it. You know, he just
Yeah,
like
that's
he
really
got
cool.
it. And I was like, wait a second. Like if this guy gets it, then maybe that's good. Maybe that's a
Yeah,
good thing.
you might be
You
onto
know?
something.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's what you want. You want the janitor to be like, yeah, this is what's going on, man. You know, like that's a good
Yeah,
thing.
well, I think that's part of the problem for me. While there was like a moment of rethinking, it was before the exhibition. I was thinking of like maybe I should just take some photos that look nice. Like, so many like some it's so easy to make photos for photographers,
Yeah.
not make photos for like your mum.
Hmm.
Like it's a very different kind of idea of what could be beautiful. And that's when I decided I wanted to like fill a quota of photos which I thought were still really good, but could go in anyone's house as a print and not look too arty. And it did change the way I think about photography, I guess, because with thinking of like this new way of how photography might exist in the future with print sales and galleries and all those things, making stuff which is more accessible to more people is probably going to make it somewhat more successful. Like you might not
Yeah.
need to please the same crowd anymore. You might want to make things which are more widespread instead of pleasing to the finite people that will buy expensive prints.
And that may be a more impactful thing in the world to do
Yeah,
that.
I mean, I think it would definitely have a greater impact.
Yeah. So it's given me a 2 minute warning on here. So I guess
Okay.
we've got to wind her down. Well, I was going to ask you the next time you were coming to the States so you could come visit me in Tennessee, but no commitments. You've done your Great
Yeah.
American Road Trip, so
Well, no,
you're not.
no, no, no. I mean, I wanted to actually be in America right now. I was hoping to be. Um, but obviously I can't travel anytime soon, so I don't know when it's going to be.
Well, when you decide, I have a spare bedroom with your name on it
Excellent.
anytime. You just say
Thank you.
you're more than welcome to stay with us. Um,
Sweet.
that's the best thing about photographers is community. You know,
Yeah,
people take care of each other.
I'm building up a big map for my next free road trip across America.
Well, awesome. Well, George, man, thanks for hanging out with me. And like, I think some of the stuff you said was just very encouraging to me that like there's new ways of stuff happening, and that gives me a lot of hope in the medium, and just keep doing good work, dude. Like, you're doing some cool things. Just keep it up, man. I'm like super stoked to like watch you do your thing. So just keep doing it, man.
Thanks very much. Thank
All
you
right, thanks,
for
brother.
having me.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for being here. If you need anything, just holler. If you're coming through, you know where to find me. I'll be in
Cool.
Tennessee. So,
All right.
all right.
See ya.
Thanks, man. See ya.